Casey trade, how long did that take to come together? Have you been talking about that for a while?
Yeah, before I get into specifics, I think it's important for me publicly to acknowledge what a great player and person Casey Mittelstadt is. I have just an incredible amount of respect for Casey. You know, when I first got this job, this is 4 years, I mean, he went from kind of a healthy scratch and on the taxi squad and, you know, some struggles to turning into a heck of a hockey player. And I give him all the credit for that because the work he's put in. He's loved in that locker room. He's a leader. It was a very, very difficult trade to make. And, you know, I'll reiterate to you guys, I think I've said it to you, and definitely I've said it to Casey, is I was not shopping Casey Mittelstadt. He was a sought-after player for obvious reasons because of what I just said, and also the center position. So I was getting calls, and what I made very clear to the league was, you know, I have to be willing to listen and think and talk about every possible scenario that I think makes sense for our team now and into the future. It's probably no secret that I've been working for a couple years to find a defenseman, and it's really, really tough in this league to find a top pair kind of talent that Bo Byram is. At that age, you generally have to draft them, you know, so these are really, really difficult trades to make. So, that was something that I'd say been worked on for a while. I mean, when I talk about looking for D for a couple years, this particular situation had been ongoing for a number of weeks. I had Jeremiah Crow and Jason Kermanos flying, you know, around the country a little bit, watching them closely. I was watching them very closely. You know, and these situations are a little fluid. They get a little temperature rises and then things quiet down. And then I'd say 2 or 3 days before the deal, it started to really ramp up again. And then it was a complicated deal based on them, Colorado, having kind of a simultaneous deal. So that, I want to say complicated it, but it made it tricky. And ultimately we made the trade. But it was something that, with a player of Casey's status and stature, it took a lot of thought, and we just felt it was the right thing to do at this time.
Kevin, what gave you confidence, Kevin, that you have internally to replace Casey, especially when it comes to at the center position?
Yeah, I think it's a great point, and that all is part of the conversations you have leading up to making a trade like this. I think Peyton Krebs, his foundation of his game, take away, you know, we know he has offensive abilities. We knew when we drafted him he's a highly skilled player. He's a good playmaker, but the foundation of his game's better, and I think you'll start to see more of the offensive side come out as that base is there. And I think he's taken some big steps, which gave us some comfort that he's elevating and prepared for more. So I think that's something that you don't want to overwhelm and you don't want to force anything, but I think over time that we envision. Certainly having some really, in my opinion, high-end centerman prospect helps. You know, some of these guys, you draft as centers, you don't know 100% until they get here and solidify things. Even Casey sometimes was bouncing to the wing, and, you know, but guys, obviously the Savoy's, Kulik, and Ostlund, you see these guys is in the pipeline. So all of that plays a role into the decision you make.
Do you want to maybe add at that position this summer? You know, especially after you get to see the last 15 or so games, how Peyton feels in that role and what maybe you have internally.
For sure, and I think we have work to do. I mean, the center position is so critical. You know, I mean, obviously the goaltending, key, your defense. You know, in my opinion, the next most important as you build out your roster, and then the center position. And so, you can never have enough centermen and enough depth. And then we do need to figure out the mix. Over the last 48 hours, had conversation with teams with veteran centermen right now that were they available? Could we get them? But I've kind of said this before. This is a tricky time of year to be able to make those type of trades because teams don't want to give those guys up for prospects, picks, that kind of thing. And especially where we are in the standings. So that is definitely something we'll look at. We'll see how the development over the next handful of games with Krebsy goes, but we do see a upside there, and then we'll make the decision going into the summer.
Why Bo
Well, Bo is everything I look for in a defenseman. Just speaking of me personally, we all have our own eye for what we like, don't like. Obviously, when you make a decision of this magnitude, you're bringing in a lot of people and getting a lot of input from the staff and me personally, I love his ability to get up in the play, move the puck, his calmness, his skating ability, I believe he's got even more offensive upside than he's been able to completely show this young in his career. And he's a guy that can play both sides. That mattered in this deal. Likes the right side, and so that's something you think about as well. Just his age, where I feel like he's a guy that can really mature and grow with this group, and that's something I've been really working on too. Because if you're gonna look and add a defenseman, especially a top type defenseman, you may do it through free agency, and then it might be really good for a couple years, and now you got a guy at the real back end of his career. So, and that's something sometimes you do. But in this situation, we felt like to get this caliber player talent that we can have, with us for a long time, hopefully, was the right move.
Did you retain any salary in any of your 3 trades?
No. How many trades did we make today?
Kyle, Erik Johnson, and Casey.
No, yeah, okay, and just so you know, there is one more trade coming that's in the queue. It's a minor league player that was in Rochester. I can't get into specifics because the trade call hasn't happened yet, but we've agreed on the deal. The paperwork's sent in, so there will be one more coming. But I'd tell you if I could. It's something I can't. But no, the answer is no retention.
As far as trading Kyle, it's obviously something I guess he wanted. Like, how difficult was it, and what was the process? Did he give you some teams that he would go to? Like, how did you go about it, I guess?
Yeah. Sorry. Take a sec here. Yeah, Kyle Okposo, he's just as you guys know, an unbelievable person. I have a lot of respect for people that are selfless in this game and what he's given to this organization, his heart and soul. And I think back on some struggles that he's had in his own time, and the struggles that we've been through together since I've been general manager, and the care that he had. That's a unique relationship. So I want to thank him. And Danielle and his kids. These are amazing people. So maybe I can talk better when I just focus on hockey and not the personal side. But no, I think when you have a player that, with all the stuff I just said, and is the captain of your team, I believe you owe people the respect to have an honest conversation and understand exactly how they feel. And they need to understand exactly the job that I have and where I'm at. And I'll keep the conversation private, but he made it very clear to me what he was hoping to do and where he was hoping to go at the deadline. And fortunately, we were able to make it happen. I wish him the best, and I know he'll be missed, but I think he's got an amazing opportunity in front of him. And I'm disappointed that I'm talking about this right now, because this isn't where any of us wanted to be in terms of the standings at this time of year. And it's certainly, when he re-signed this summer, not what we were talking about, but that's where we are, and it's part of how this game goes sometimes.
Do you see him maybe, with the hockey mind that he has, when he's done playing, being a person that could be a scout or in the front office or something like that?
For sure, yeah. I think Kyle is. First of all, you have to love the game, because you work a lot, and you just have to have such a passion for this game. And I think sometimes it's easy to forget, especially in the pressure of it all, and how lucky we are to get up every day and to do what we do for a living. And I think Kyle has a perspective on that he feels very fortunate to have had the career he's had and the life he's been able to live. And I know a lot of that is because of the game of hockey, and he respects the game. So he's absolutely someone that I would assume when in the right time and if the right time in his mind came that he would be working in this game for a long time.
Did you try to do the same for Zemgus, find him the right fit?
Yeah, Zemgus did have the conversation with him. You know, Zemgus is so important within the fabric of this team. He's been here since the day he was drafted. It's a different situation a little bit. Obviously, I think Zemgus has plenty of years ahead of him, you know, and I've made it clear to him that that's something that we're going to talk about. We want to get through the trade deadline and, you know, our own situation. But, you know, I did have conversations with teams, and it just had to make sense for us and Zemgus, but, you know, for us, and it just where we got to today there wasn't the right deal to make, and I'm really glad we're keeping him because he's just, there's something special about him, and I think it's important here down the stretch too that he's in that locker room.
Kevin, when you look at this team, you know, Bo is obviously kind of like Greenway, a move to the future, a guy with term, a guy you might want to keep long term. I guess the question I have is, you may not even know the answer now, maybe more for October, but what kind of personality are you trying to build here? You kind of had a fire wagon hockey team last year, and it seems like as a group you've kind of deviated and become tried to be more structured and defensive and, you know, at times more boring. And I guess that's the question of the season. We even talked with Kyle about it. What are you at this point? What are you trying to be?
Yeah, I think that's been a little bit of our problem this year because I think we've been a little caught in between, honestly. I can promise you we don't want to be boring. We want to be fast. We want to play fast. We want to be an up-tempo team that attacks, has team on their heels, pressures pucks, gets pucks back, has skill to, when you get the puck back, now can keep it. You know, I think some of what you're kind of referring to is, I think, a little bit of us evolving, you know, just understanding that there are times that you have to be able to shut teams down. You have to be able to stifle teams. You have to be able to to live with, you know what, I can't make a highlight play. I'm just going to probably put it off the glass behind the D. You know, that is part of, even when you have talent, part of managing a game. So I don't think it's as easy, Mike, as black and white to say, like, this is exactly how we're going to play all the time. It's doing both, and it's ultimately doing what you have to do to win. And so I think philosophically, we need to be way more of an assertive, offensive, on your toes type of team. And I think the way our D-core is built for a reason, where you can kill plays in the neutral zone, guys that are skilled guys that can close out, pressure pucks, get pucks back, and move it up to the forwards. You know, and I think obviously Dahlin and Power also like to play the right side. I mean, you look from the data analytic perspective, Dahlin's numbers are better on the right than the left. So, you know, you kind of take all that into consideration, you know, as you put your roster together. But I think moving forward, Jokiharju has been taken a huge step over the last, 6 weeks maybe it's been, a number of games. And, I think after Clifton settled in, I thought the first maybe 30 games he's finding his way, and he's kind of settled into his role. And I really like the way our D-core is structured. We obviously sent Ryan Johnson down. You guys saw that. But in terms of the year he's had up to this point, I think he's taken huge steps. So I'm really excited about the group moving forward that we're putting together on the back end.
Kevin, maybe this is a question for the end of the season, but I think a lot of people would ask you, did you expect to be further along in that assertiveness, offensive, kind of on your toes template that you just described? And where was the shortfall, in terms of maybe how you guys judge this roster and put together what you expected from the beginning of the season to where you guys are?
Yeah, we're not happy with where we are. This is not where we expected to be. Outside the playoff picture at the trade deadline, making the moves we made, today, is not what we wanted to be doing, but it's the reality. And I think part of what we have to do is figure out how much of this is just part of the process and part of the learning and the growing up and just having our guys understand what it's like to play against, tops guys that may be starting to score, play against other teams' best lines, best D, just figuring that stuff out. How much of that is what we've kind of have to learn and go through versus where were we really off? What didn't we do well enough? Clearly our power play hasn't been good enough. It has to be better. Special teams in general. I mean, that's just a critical part of the game. But I think I'll say it, and I'm sure everybody else would say we're disappointed with where we are, and we need to be better. And the Bo Byram decision, making a big trade like that, was to upgrade our team and to make our team better now and into the future, and that's what we're going to work towards in the summer. And but yeah, we need. We're young, but we're not inexperienced. So that's the thing. Now we have to take the young talent and use the learning lessons that we have and turn it into winning hockey games.
Traded away, a lot of leadership, veteran leadership in Johnson and Okposo. Are guys like Darlene and Cousins, are they at a point in their career now, knowing that they're about 24, whatever, are they at a point now in their career to take some of that leadership now? Or do they still need more time?
Yeah, I believe so. I think you look at the age and experience of those players when Kyle Okposo got the C on his chest to where they are now. There's a big difference. I mean, Rasmus Dahlin has elevated in every single way, on the ice, off the ice, physically, just his voice, his confidence. So Dylan Cousins, another example. But we have leadership in that room, and I think they've been mentored by some really good people. Going back to Craig Anderson, and you mentioned Erik Johnson, same thing. So they've now gained Eric Stahl years ago, and just guys like that they've gained experience from and lessons that they've learned from. So it's their time. That's it.
Didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good.
When it comes to Olofsson's, current standing with the organization, did you have options for that today? What's the work there?
Yeah. Vic is he's about as good as it gets when it comes to being a pro. It's really tough. I've been really hoping I was going to be able to move him today. I've been working on it. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do anything. But in saying that, I think with moving guys out, like he has an opportunity to play right now, and I think that's what's most important to him, getting in, showing that he can be the NHL player that he's been before. But, I don't know if you guys understand quite how difficult it is for someone like Vic that scored 28 goals last year and has a career and has contract up to be, kind of going through what he's done and how his first thing in the morning, smile on his face and the work he puts in. So, it's a tough situation, but I really hope he finishes the season strong and, can parlay that into the next, chapter of his career.
Are there any overtures from any other clubs to retain salary, and what is the organizational philosophy in terms of weaponizing?
Yeah, it's such a talked about thing. So it was a little trickier this year. I had been approached on 2 or 3 occasions over the last week, and I was absolutely open to doing it with the hesitation that we also knew we were going into today with unrestricted free agents, and I didn't want to, but I didn't want to kind of block ourselves from having an opportunity to move someone because I used retentions. Although the retentions, if they were going to be of enough value, it would have been absolutely something we would have been ready to do. So I guess organizationally, in terms of your question, philosophically, yeah, no problem doing it if it makes sense. It's not a late pick for this, or that's not where I think for us made sense, especially with the free agents that we had.
Just what's going to be done with the captaincy now? Will it just be open for the rest of the year? Is there a plan, I guess?
I honestly probably should have thought about that question coming into this because it's the right question to ask. I haven't talked to Donnie about it. This is all pretty fresh, but I think there's no rush for us. I think we'll just take a breath here, let it naturally happen. But I'm pretty confident there's some people in this room ready to step up.
Kevyn was moving.
Reports that teams were calling you about Alex Tuch, and I'm curious what the dialogue with Alex is, just because he is, in the prime of his career. I'm sure not, thrilled to be not playing playoff hockey. Just what was the back and forth like with him, and what was your reaction, I guess, to getting the calls if you did?
I got one call on Alex Tuch a little while ago, and the next day it was in 32 Thoughts from Elliot Friedman that we were taking calls. Not true. Of course, I'm taking calls, true, but like that we were, talking about something. Not trading Alex Tuch. That's not something we had any interest in doing. He's a key piece of the puzzle for us, and I grabbed him the next day and said, I don't know if you pay attention or you read things, but no interest in trading you. Did a couple more teams after it went into the Sportsnet article call me, yes. And I said, appreciate the phone call, not a guy we're looking to trade, period. And in saying that, my job, especially where we are in the standings, I have to be open and listening to everything and anything. So my job is to take calls and listen, but not a guy that in any way, shape, or form we're looking to do anything with.
Kevin, you have 18 games left. Barring something historic, you're not going to make the playoffs. What do you want to see from what the guys left in these 18 games?
Yeah, I mean, as a player, Mike, there's two answers to that. As a player, you got to be in the moment, and you got to get up and you got to go focus on Edmonton Oilers tomorrow and win a hockey game. And then you go on to the next one, and you try to stack as many wins at the end of the day to put yourself in the standings where you get in. And I think from the player perspective, I've been in this position where it's like, no, we're going to go win, and then we're going to win the next game, and you're going to just go. And from me personally right now, I want to see our guys compete. I want to see our guys. Everybody hates to lose, but you got to have guys that love to win enough that you're going to sacrifice to do anything you can to win a hockey game. That's what I want to see. And I have seen it out of some, but not enough. And I think that that's the next step for our team. There's a lot at stake. This is the National Hockey League. And you're not entitled to ice time. You're not entitled to roster spots. You're entitled to come to work every day and be a good person, treat your teammates well, treat the staff well, and go out and compete on the ice. And I think if we do that, we have a lot of talent and things are going to be fine. But we need to elevate for sure.
Are you having Ryan Johnson in Rochester today to make sure he's eligible for the Calder Cup playoffs?
Yeah, yes, exactly. But we are going to leave him down right now. And we just look at this opportunity for him in particular, especially given the situation with acquiring Bo, that he can go play some big minutes right now. Every game right now is basically a playoff game in Rochester. They're fighting. So he's been tremendous. But, yeah, it was to make sure that he's eligible. Him and Rusek will both be eligible to play in Rochester in the playoffs, which I think is key. But also, Ryan getting that ice time right now just in situations, I think is really good for his development.
We saw some guys come in. Were they able to say goodbye to Kyle and so forth? Were they able to get that goodbye for now?
Were guys, did you ask?
Yes, some guys I think came in. Were they able to say
I've been upstairs, so I haven't been down. I mean, obviously, I've been on the phone with Kyle, so I don't know exactly who was in or wasn't in. Just been upstairs in my office. But I know guys were able to see Casey. You got to remember, this is spend a lot of time with each other. It's a lot bigger than, coming to work, and these guys really care about each other. And I think to some extent, when you're in a situation like we're in, this is part of the business, but it's tough to see friends and teammates leave. So I'm sure guys, if they didn't see him here, they're probably going to see him before he heads to the airport.
You mentioned wanting to see competitiveness here in the final 18 games or so. How much is that something you think you might need to add from the outside? And how much are you at a point now that you feel like you can be a little bit more aggressive in adding from the outside?
Yeah, I think roster construction, I mean, we went in different phases since I've been, in this position. And, I think we had to really come up with a strategy to accumulate assets, build the talent within our roster, within the prospect pipeline, to Rochester down, which I think we've done. But now we really need to a couple things. One, focus on exactly how the roster and roles and responsibilities for different players and who fits and why. And we have to be open to moving prospects, moving picks, something like that, if it brings us a player in the offseason that can help us. And maybe that's a fourth line center that's really good on faceoffs, good penalty killer, that type of thing. That's where what we have to be willing to do. And for sure, it's not that easy. You just don't pick up the phone and get a guy, especially good players. So you have to acquire them and pay for them. But for sure, we're open to it. In saying all that, we need the guys inside our room right now to be better. Period. That's going to be the biggest way to elevate into next year. I think we've had some guys take some pretty good steps this year, but we've also had players that I think have way more. And if we get, continue to elevate and improve in certain ways from a team-wise structure, and we continue to get the goaltending and continue to get some of the performances out of players that we have, and then we get the guys, to elevate in other ways, some of the other players, I think we're going to be in a really good spot.
This might be getting ahead of things, but what's the importance of getting some, maybe not necessarily older veterans like Erik Johnson was, but getting some older veterans in there to kind of help provide a bit of a guiding role for the future and filling out the way the rest of the roster is going to be moving ahead?
I don't. It has to be the right one, first of all, and second of all, I know we're young, but I'm going to say this again: we're not. Dylan Cousins is young still in age, but he's now been in the league a while and has a lot of starting to get games under his belt. Owen Power's still young in age, but now you're getting more NHL, kind of been through the league a couple times, So I don't know for where we're at right now, it's as critical that we have to have this leader come in that's been, veteran guy. It might be, but for me, it's more about can they help us win hockey games? Because I think from a leadership standpoint, and now with the young core that we have and the experiences they've been through and the leadership, the mentorship from the Okies of the world and Zemgus and Craig Anderson and Erik Johnsons and those guys, I'm okay with that. So we just need to identify the right fit. And if they also have pedigree and experience, great.
You mentioned Olofsson's going to get more of an opportunity with Casey and Kyle out. Is there anybody, Rusek, anybody else in Rochester, you'd maybe like to give this an opportunity to see how maybe they'd fit not only now, but for next season, trying to evaluate?
Yeah, obviously there's rules because you only get the 4 recalls, and it depends where you are with your roster, and so it can get tricky there. But for sure, I think if the opportunity presented itself, you look at the Yuri Kuliks and Rosines, and obviously you mentioned Rusek and these guys. So we'll see, we'll evaluate it. But I think in a perfect world, you're able to do some of that, but some of it's just going to be dictated on the health of our roster and where we are kind of in our schedule.
Jack White is coming up on 6 weeks. I don't think he's quite there yet. Is he getting ready to get back on the ice?
Not on the ice yet, but continuing to improve. And yeah, I'd have to look at the exact date. I can't remember, but you're right. Yeah, okay. So he's doing well. I think the goal would be that as we get closer to the end of the regular season, he'd be getting closer and closer, but we'll have to kind of see how he goes over the next few weeks.
From a league-wide perspective, what was your reaction to what Vegas did over the last
Just
week?
in general?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they're really talented team. They're Stanley Cup defending champions, and as they've shown since they started their franchise, they're gonna do everything they can to put themselves in the best spot. So there's gonna be some interesting first round matchups. That's for sure. I don't like to talk too much about other teams, but I think what I was happy about with this trade deadline was you never know going into the deadline, especially in the situation we were in. Are you going to be able to make a hockey trade that when you identify a way to help your team and then you really believe can help your team into the future? And in my opinion, that was a really important trade for us, as tough as it is to see Casey go. And then we were able to do some things with the free agents that you don't know. Like you don't know going into it how it'll shake itself out. But I feel good about, from our perspective, what happened here the last few days.
Devin Cooley, that just came, Devin Cooley,
Okay.
just, you wanna, get, I mean.
Yeah,
obviously-
we had 3 goalies in Rochester. We got a phone call late there that they were looking for, so we were able to move, someone that was kind of in a tough spot in Rochester for a 7th round pick. It's for me, it's just it's a good deal for us in that situation we were in. It's good for him.
How quick do you expect him to play again though this season?
I don't know. I don't want to say that because it depends. I think there's a long process to go with him having to check a lot of boxes before I would do it, but I don't want to rule it out. But I wouldn't say that I'm expecting it.